Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, July 28th, 2025, and today we are talking about protecting yourself from ticks, stylishly, sorta, how to manage the good with the bad of farming, and comfrey versus trees, so let's do it. All right, happy Monday to everyone. I hope you all are doing well and had reasonably good weekends. It was nice here, I suppose. I mean, hot, but nice. We have another one of those heat domes hanging out overhead, which is not my favorite thing, but it looks like it will break, whatever happens to a heat dome on Thursday. And I heard someone say this weekend that it's going to be a cooler than average fall. And I did not fact check that at all because I'm just choosing to believe it, which I think is allowed sometimes. You got to have hope. This really has been one of the hottest summers that I can remember, though. Otherwise, my weekend was almost exclusively working on our local rec soccer league. I've always thought that everyone should have to work in a restaurant for at least a small stint in their life, for the perspective on how difficult that and wild that business is. But I'm also adding to that volunteering for a recreational sports league to the list. Got to do that at least once in your life to see the unreal amount of work that goes into making a sports league happen exclusively with volunteers. However, I did manage to get out in the garden with my birding lens and catch a couple shots of the goldfinches as I promised. It was not easy because it was somewhere between 90 and a million degrees out, but I did get a couple mediocre shots, so that felt like a win. Last thing before we jump into today's topics, I have a new video prompt for you all this week for your 20-second video clips. Still send us your harvest clips. Those are I think perennially fair game. If you just want to send us a clip of you harvesting or what you harvested, go for it. Love that. But we'd love to see one crop in your garden that you are really proud of this season. It can be a flower, it can be a tomato plant or a tomato crop, it can be a tunnel full of cucumbers. Whatever it is, send a short 20-second video to farmermike@notillgrowers.com and we will add those towards the end of our segments like we've been doing. It's one of my absolute favorite things that we've ever done with this show, and I love seeing your all's gardens. Truly so much fun. And we get a lot of good feedback on it, so you all are enjoying it too. Anyway, we are going to take a lot of Patreon questions this week because I really need to get caught up on those Patreon questions over there. And also, so I'm not answering how to handle X tomato problem around Xmas, unless you're in Australia and you may very well be dealing with X tomato problem around Xmas, which is fine too. So anyway, our first question today comes to us from Kate Mosley at Leroy.Street, who writes, quote, "On comfrey in orchards, I would like to plant it around my trees, but I worry that if it can prevent grass roots from spreading, wouldn't it also inhibit the feeder roots of citrus trees and similar?" End quote. All right, great question here. So we did a comfrey segment not too long ago that I will link in the show notes, and which you may have already heard, but for the listener, it's there if you want a sort of deeper dive on whether comfrey is worth the hype or meets the hype. So I won't go much into general comfrey info here, but in that segment, I think I mentioned that I would like to have comfrey in our orchard to help cut down on weed whacking, which is not my favorite thing. The question of whether that would cause too much competition with trees is an important one, though. So I looked into the research and I found not a ton, but I did find one case study from the Ecological Farmers Association of Ontario comparing Saskatoon and black currant production with and without comfrey, and found, quote, "no difference in Saskatoon growth or production compared to shrubs without comfrey," end quote. Basically, it seemed to have no effect, positive or negative, the comfrey, on those fruits, but that's not super helpful. And I mean, it may be different depending on what fruit you're growing, and that's obviously also not citrus. By and large, there's not a lot of research that I can find showing one way or another. Anecdotally, people have had a lot of success, but the general recommendation seems to be to allow the trees a few years to establish before incorporating the comfrey, and then do so out like wide, roughly where the drip line will be, sort of the end of the tree canopy, wherever that will end up. Then you will want to still kind of like chop and drop it regularly to return the nutrients via the leaves into the soil. Also, of course, make sure you are using the correct comfrey. The Bocking 4 and 14 varieties, for instance, are the most easily accessible sterile varieties. Get them from a reputable source, though, because getting the wrong variety can result in comfrey not as a weed blocker, but just as a weed, which I think is probably not the goal. Also, in drier regions, I would perhaps be more hesitant to utilize comfrey only because of the competition for moisture, but also plants help preserve moisture. So if you feel comfortable about your irrigation, then perhaps comfrey will help you to keep more of that moisture in the soil through shade, roots, and that little bit of delicious mulch you get from the comfrey. There isn't a ton to add on top of that for the, just based on the research, but I will say just like run a small trial, plant some comfrey under some trees, no comfrey under other trees, and observe. If you start to see any negative growth growth impacts, primarily slower growth, yellowing of the leaves, or low yield or anything like that, then eliminate the comfrey. If not, perhaps it's something that could work with other plantings in your circumstances. Just, move slow and don't break anything. Pragmatism for the win. Anyway, fun question, and if I do decide to incorporate some comfrey in our own orchards, I will keep you all abreast. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, the negative actions we take in farming square off in a battle royale with the positive actions. I mean, that's a little dramatic, but that'll make sense soon. BRB. All right, so this is our sweet corn. It's an open pollinated variety that we got from Johnny's. I'll put the name of it on the screen. I can't remember, but here it is, double standard open pollinated from Johnny's. We've grown like things like espresso and some bicolors and stuff before, but this is the first open pollinated sweet corn we've ever grown. I've been kind of sitting on it because I was like, oh, it's not quite mature. Like these ears are pretty small. But then I just decided to peel into one and they look pretty good. They're just small. And the weird thing is everyone I've opened up so far, no earworm, like no bugs at all. And it's pretty tasty, maybe a little starchier. But yeah, so it is shorter than most sweet corn, smaller ears than most sweet corn, but did well in a drought period and pretty tasty. Right, not bad. That doesn't seem too bad to me. It's a little small, but tasty.
Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. If you're listening to this, you probably found 5 rare minutes to breathe. But what got pushed back further down the to-do list to make that happen? If it's your CSA newsletter, you're not alone. Farmhand's new newsletter builder was made for busy farmers. It automates weekly emails, drives add-on sales, and makes it easy to keep your customers in the loop without spending hours behind a screen. It launches this summer, but our listeners can request early access now. Visit farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show.
If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's second Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Mike at Think Little Farm, who, yes, isn't just our editor, but also a farmer, who writes, quote, "Hey, I'm wondering if," that's my best Mike impression, Hey, I'm wondering if you might consider doing a segment regarding your thoughts on nuance in farming. Your book and podcast talks a lot about non-dogmatic approach to no-till, and I love that. Absolutes are for the birds, or maybe rather for the aphids. I've been reading books by Aldo Leopold and UK farmer shepherd James Rebanks, and each of them have a unique land ethic that is nuanced and specific. Obviously, you are the kind of guy who recognizes the nuance and vicissitudes of everything, so I'm curious what you might have to say about things like killing animals in order to save crops, voles and moles and such, buying plastic in order to prep gardens, using fossil fuels to get to markets, etc. Many of your videos touch on these things, but wondering if you and or the listeners have any additional insight. Thanks, end quote. Great stuff, Mike. I love this question. First, Patreon members, I love topic suggestions in general. And of course, I've said this several times recently, but feel free to put those into the show threads over there at patreon.com/no-till-growers. But I love this particular question. I feel it's very poignant. Essentially, how do we square the good with the bad when it comes to farming? The positive with the negative, the life with the death, the plastic with the ecology. There is, of course, no one right answer here, but I do feel there are perhaps plenty of wrong ones. What I mean there, I guess, is that there are a few ways I would not try to square these realities. For instance, one wrong way of thinking about this could be justifying the negative thing without acknowledging and respecting the negative thing. Like saying, it doesn't matter that plastics pollute, we have to use them to farm. And sure, maybe irrigation, for instance, without plastic is just not a realistic option in your context, but it's still important to remember the negative aspects of plastic, so we look for better and more conservative ways to use and reuse it on our farms when we do indeed feel compelled or to use it, or just frankly have to use it, like for irrigation. Another wrong way of approaching this question is perhaps justifying the negative thing because other people are worse, like our own personal pan whataboutism. Like, why should small farms worry about our plastic use when we have hundreds of acres of under plastic on farms across California or wherever? Or why should I worry about my energy usage when we have a factory down the road spewing exhaust 24/7 into the air? Well, we should worry about it because when everyone thinks that way, the problem accumulates. It's no longer just your pollution, but it's the sum of everyone's pollution that thinks, oh, I'm just one person. How much damage am I really doing? There are lots of just one persons. I mean, technically billions of them, more than any single factory. We also tend to use the negative when we need it, but afterwards we do not always make an effort to avoid the negative thing in the future. So like maybe it's that we had a pest on a crop that we needed to manage. It's easy to just spray the crop and then move on instead of making a concerted effort to avoid whatever led to the problem in the first place. For the future? Was it a lack of fertility? Was it a lack of water? Was it planted at the wrong time of year? What can we do to attract the pest's predators next season so that we're not having to have these emergent fixes? It isn't the emergent fix that should be regretted, but the lack of corrective actions afterward. Prophylactic thinking does not come particularly natural to us as a culture. It's something that we have to work at and collectively appreciate, both on a small scale, i.e. how do we stop that pest in the garden next time, and on a large scale, i.e. how do we prevent the ocean from consuming millions of acres of beaches and that sort of stuff. Now, to be clear, I am absolutely imperfect on all of these fronts. We still use plastic on our farms and perhaps places where we could find better alternatives. But I believe that we're getting there and we're trying to stay conscious of these. And also asking questions like this helps me to keep the perspective. Making our new home and farm more sustainable energy-wise is also difficult. It's an expensive challenge for us. But setting goals like that, caring about it, is, I think, how you get there. Like I am wont to say, you don't hit what you don't aim at. Anyway, did I address the prompt? I hope so. Definitely was an interesting one. Thank you, Mike, for this. And of course, all of your work. And up next, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, though, the best clothing to get for the increasing populations of ticks in your life. Be right back.
Hey everybody, Farmer Mike here, coming into you live from the edit station. See? The microscope? Y'all know that microscope. Listen, thanks Farmer Jesse for answering my question. Huge help. Great to hear your perspective. Just wanted to put my own plug in here for your 20-second videos. Please send them to me, your harvest videos, crop that you're proud of, show us your farm, garden, whatever. We love these things. It's so awesome to get these things from y'all. And yeah, we hope to get many more. So if you want to be on an episode of Growers Daily, go outside, film yourself for 20 seconds, and send it on in to farmermike@no-tillgrowers.com. Peace.
All right, we're going to tackle this one last question today. This one is from DeLorean, who writes, quote, "This is more of a gardening adjacent question, but how do you protect yourself from ticks while working outdoors? I've taken to wearing white boots so I can see them and give off a proper screen before disposing of them. I use DEET and picaridin. My husband has vetoed a second round of guinea fowl," end quote. All right, great question. Thank you. So we did a whole tick segment right around the time when this question came in. So I have sat on it for a little bit just to spread out, our tick info a little bit, but I will link that show in the show notes. However, for that reason, in this show, I'll talk a little bit about managing ticks in terms of clothing, which is not something I really covered in that segment. Interestingly, there is some research on clothing and ticks that may be helpful that I had not come across before. For instance, I found a review of all the preventative research around ticks and clothing that may have some helpful insights, though most of it may not really surprise you. For instance, one, wearing lightly colored clothing, like your boots, so that the ticks are easier to spot. That is one way of dealing with them. Tucking in your clothes and wearing more protection. Preferring pants over shorts, I suppose, can help force the ticks to travel a longer distance, giving them more of a chance to fall off in the process. There are some positive results from applying, quote, "repellents or permethrin to coveralls or uniform style clothing can result in decreased numbers of tick bites," but it notes, similar studies are lacking for members of the public wearing summer weight clothing during normal daily activities, end quote. I think that last note is a good note on the part of the reviewer there. Sometimes research can be a little like wearing a full body hazmat suit can prevent 100% of tick bites. So maybe if there's a bug spray you're cool with, like the two that you mentioned, applying it directly to your clothing could help. There are also pants made with that permethrin in the fabric, which, I I will leave that to you if you feel like that's something that you want against your skin, but it is technically an option. Some other techniques and ideas that have come up in the review of the literature are heating up your clothing in the dryer when you come home to kill any ticks that might have hitchhiked their way home. Obviously, that would also be a good time to carry out a thorough tick check and or take a shower just to be sure. This is not clothing, but animals who spend a substantial amount of time outdoors in the woods and in pastures or around trails can often be an excellent host for ticks coming into your house. So perhaps combing the animals when they come in for the night can be a good preventative measure as well that I did not mention. I don't want to be irresponsible by sharing what I do, but I just rely heavily on being sensitive to itching. Maybe I just got really trained to what it feels like when a tick's crawling on you, or what that specific itch feels like when it bites, or possibly I'm just more sensitive to it in general from when we lived in a newly cleared forest. But ticks crawl on me and I almost immediately know it, or if they do bite me, I find them pretty quickly. Highly recommend the tick check, especially after being in tick territory and especially after a rain. They seem to bloom out when that happens. Anyway, more little tidbits out there than I expected on this subject, so thanks for the fun question and opportunity to explore it. And if guineas aren't the answer, and again, the research as to whether their quality as predators outweighs their qualities as tick hosts isn't super robust. But anyway, maybe instead encourage as many ground-dwelling birds as possible to help keep those populations down. So yeah, I think that's it for this Monday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to do that in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and the team at No Till Growers. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. How far did you go? Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Truly, we see those orders come in, and it really does make this show possible, so we really do appreciate that. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of July, which only has like a few more days left. So I think, right? 31 days? I think that's right. Anyway, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to, well, look at that. This is the first Monday in a long time that I can remember where we didn't have a new sign up over the weekend. So that's all good, but that's the story fuel. So if you love these stories, become one of our Patreon members at patreon.com/notillgrowers to get a new one tomorrow, or just bump up from $2 to $5, $5 to $10, whatever you can afford. Until then, remember, I need to come up with a catchphrase. Something soil. That'll do. Thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you tomorrow. Bye.
I don't blame you, and I should call you, see what you've been up to. I've been wondering, how far did you go in 7 months?